Hiyo, it's Volix. And for this one, I just wanted to absolutely have the most fun I possibly could and use my favorite weapons. And I'm sure you've guessed it by now, but in this game I have fallen in love with bows. Yes, there isn't a feeling quite like aiming down sights, boosting an arrow, and then witnessing devastating red numbers when the shot connects to a weak spot. It has its own visceral quality. The feeling of being in the pocket isn't the same on any other weapon. With bows, you have to take into account your lead time for charging and the projectile flight, especially if you want the additional irresistible satisfaction of a perfect release and the payload of damage that comes with it. At first, I intended to play through with one build and do a video about it, but I couldn't make up my mind. Every bow in this game is absolutely OP. I love all of them. Each has its own unique features that make them a joy to use. So in the end, I used all three, all with their own separate builds that I swapped out whenever I felt like it. So what we're going to do in this video is just take a look at all three of those builds, take them to the firing range, explore what makes them unique, and also find a build that will actually benefit from the Archon's 50% damage bonus, because Moonlight Barrage does not, even though it is a mod. Okay, the meta right now is this build right here, which is the ever-famous Energy Diverter and Tightly Wound Coil combination. An excellent combo that I cannot take credit for. This is not my build. It takes advantage of the one-shot nature of the weapon to proc the Tightly Wound Coil's shield on a regular basis, which in turn provides Energy Diverter's 10% crit chance and flat 15 damage as well. This is used with the Crescent Moon Bow, the mod for which magically doubles the arrows fired provided you perform a perfect charge shot while the mod is active. It's a very fancy and sciencey build with lots of synergy, so we're using it as a benchmark for where our orientation should be. As you can see, we need to bring between 3,000 and 4,000 DPS if we want something that will perform even close to as well as this does. Our big crits are hitting 2,800, which is fantastic, especially when the charge shot is in pocket and we proc bonus arrows. The DPS is very nice, I must say. So let's just switch over to Archon really quickly to show how mod damage doesn't work with this weapon. And as expected, our damage feels like trash all of a sudden because this mod does not benefit from the alleged 50% archetype buff. So you have to use the gunslinger with the Crescent Moon Bow. Now, don't get me wrong, even though I didn't want to use this build at the onset, I want to make it clear that I absolutely love this weapon, and I actually found it the best by a very thin margin. I should say that I wound up using it to bring down Annihilation, though I ran that fight with several different bows just for kicks before closing the deal. Alright, let's move on to another build here. Basically, I was able to get that Archon buff on one of these bows, and the only one that has a free mod slot is the Royal Hunting Bow. There are a few notable differences between the Crescent and the Royal. Let's bring them both up so that we can see what's what. It's got worse base damage, of course, but that's traded for crit chance and weak spot damage. Okay, so now that we've sorted that out, let's go over the rest of the build really quickly. We're swapping in the gold ribbon for even more mod power, just thematically it works. And also for the haste, this makes up for a bit of the fire rate we lose with Gunslinger. Losing the diverter also eliminates the need for the tightly wound coil, which means that we have another free ring slot to put toward damage. We dropped in probability cord for those really big numbers. The rest of the build is exactly the same. Archer's Crest, Burden of the Destroyer, Stone of Malevolence. So we're seeing good numbers, good DPS and good crits in general. But another reason why I love this build is because mod power is very versatile. I found myself running Starshot because with so much acid damage pumping, those sidearm rounds were generating so fast. I also appreciate not having to rely on a shield being up for the damage to be proper. Just popping the mod on this weapon means that you're operating at full stride, which is nice. It's a pain in the ass managing so many buffs when you're in the middle of the shit. Alright, last but not least, we need to talk about Sagittarius. Here we have the highest base damage of them all, and it's one of the highest damage weapons in the entire game. This thing is so fun to use, I just love it for some reason. but I also just love the build that we're using it with. This looks like a pure DPS build at first glance, but it also requires a good deal of practice. You're relying on a melee weapon to proc all your damage from the amulet, and also you have to perform some perfect dodges if you want to get the damage from the Akari warband. I highly recommend this for close range boss fights in which you have a good understanding of the moveset, the feeling of performing a neutral backdash and then a charged counter with your melee weapon for 30% crit chance and 55% crit damage is well worth the practice. Let's take a look. As you can see out the gate, we're pushing over 6,000 on our crits, and it feels so good. For bosses like Venom, perfect dodges are the expected playstyle, so you might as well reward yourself by getting a good buff out of it. I realize that there are a couple of problems with this run though. The first is that I never use the gunslinger skill. It's just a really difficult release with a bow when your fire rate is so fast. There's also a really ugly dodge, and that tainted a perfect run, but I decided to go and close the deal just to get on with my life instead of trying the whole fight again. I also used an ammo crate at one point for some reason. Very strange manifestation of panic. Anyway, usually I'm ready to hunker down for this fight, but when I looked up and I saw his health bar, I couldn't believe it. Finally, a sub 1 minute run without using some exploit like Nightfall. Abomination, another case where Sagittarius felt so good. One shot for the armor and another for the explosive tumors. It really forces you to work on your aim if you haven't already. That moment of release is so crucial. Remember to exhale when you do it. Don't hold your breath through an entire fight. I've made that mistake. Yeah, all said, this is just such a great feeling. But I'm also kind of ready to get back to just pushing the button and shooting bullets. It was a super fun run, but I'm also kind of glad it's over. So I think that about does it for bows. I'm going to leave you on this sub 1 minute run against Telratha with the Crescent. Just to close this out, I've seen the truth and bows are completely OP. Once you iron out the playstyle, it is truly the most satisfying weapon to play with, just in the sense of achievement. For a really good time, load up one of these and head over to Narud and do some target practice with those little drones. Plenty of fun to be had there. The Drazir make for excellent target practice as well. Of course, bows are highly recommended for naked runs against Annihilation on Apocalypse difficulty. If you made it to the end, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate everyone here, and I hope you got something out of the video. If so, please drop a like. And anyone with thoughts or insights, don't hesitate to comment. That's it for me. Keep farming, everyone.